Thank you, Pastor Jason. Yes, well, I am going to venture a guess and say it is Christmas season, right? Big leap of statement there, but as Christmas looms large, as December is right around the corner, I have a question for you right off the bat. If you have your handouts, you can write on the back side of that. But with Christmas, what pressures do you expect to feel this month? My guess is most, if not all of you, will have some pressure, right? It might be time or money or relationship, but sketch out a few of those things. If you don't have a sheet, you can just think in your mind or you can write somewhere else. I'll give you a few seconds. What pressures do you expect to feel this month? Hopefully you got a few things. You can keep writing. If something's on your mind, you can keep doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. But pressure, right? As December comes and there's all these things that are queued up, this is a month of some of the greatest pressures we might face all year. And pressure can cause us to stumble in our godly character. I'll give you a few examples. The pressure of a hammer hitting your thumb can cause you to say things that are not godly character. Okay? It's pressure, right? But more every day for December, the pressure of money strain, right? This season we spend a lot of money on food and on gifts and on decorations, and so the strain of finances, that pressure to buy more, produce more, or earn more so you can spend more, or debt, can cause us to stumble in our character. So if you wrote down some things, money might be on that list, the financial pressure you might face. For others of us, or maybe all of us, it's the time pressure, right? There's only so many weekends we have. We work our hours, and then off of that, we got to manage family and extended family. December is a time where a lot more extended family time comes into play, and trips maybe when we got to drive long distances, and so that pressure of time to accomplish everything that people expect us to do. Or maybe it's just relationships, right? And trying to make everybody happy this season and trying to do everything that's expected of you. You're trying to make people happy in different relationships, and you're acting different, you're speaking different, and to try to just keep things on the even keel in those relationships, and that can be a pressure too. Right? The expectations that relationships put on us and all those things, right? All those things can come from good reasons. We might do things to try to earn money, extra money to buy gifts for our kids. That's coming from a good place. The idea of making time for people comes from a good place for good reasons. But it can lead us to wrong actions. It can lead us to do the wrong things, that pressure to do those things. We might end up in the financial strain, right? We might end up going into debt. We might end up getting way too much credit card debt, which is any credit card's too much, but we can get into way too much credit card debt to try to buy enough gifts. We might strain ourselves on time. The pressure to fit everything in might cause us to act wrong. We might end up falling into anxiety. We might end up snapping at people and saying the wrong things. And just because it comes from a good place doesn't mean it won't cause us to act in wrong ways or do the wrong things. What about the pressure of disappointment, of failed expectations for our loved ones? I know for a lot of us, there's things we wish for our kids, our parents, right, our grandkids, and we want certain things to come true. And if we aren't able to bring those about, that can be a pressure to try harder to bring those to fruition. We're going to read a story about biblical characters facing that, but I know for Saber and I, there was a time years ago where after we got married where we wanted kids. That was an expectation that we had, that was a dream we wanted to fulfill and have, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen for years. And it was hard for us to navigate that, and that was a pressure, right? It was a pressure, you have from other people just wanting us to have kids, but it was mostly our desire, our heart to have kids, and that pressure could have led us to stumble in any number of ways. There was a pressure that could have caused us to stumble in bitterness, right? It didn't happen on our time frame. It didn't happen the way we wanted it to. It didn't happen for us for years. It could have caused us to be jealous or cynical in that. And with that, there was that opportunity to stumble. I know for some of you, having kids is as easy as just scheduling a date night for Chili's, right? Right? Kid number 4 or 5, you get Chili's, Applebee's, right? For us, it was harder. It's harder. But of course, God did bless us with that. Alex and Logan in that way, and so we were grateful for that. But in those moments, we didn't know that was going to happen, and so we had to decide how we were going to act. And I would say to this first slide, godly character is doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons. On your notes, you can fill that in, the underlined words. But in that, in those pressures we face, our godly character can really be challenged. Can really be challenged. But godly character is doing the right thing and doing it for the right reasons. And when we do that, we experience the heart of Christmas. We experience more joy, more love, more peace, more hope. And we're going to explore that this month. We're going to explore that, and as the pastors preach on this theme, we're going to explore how godly character can come through and bring us more of those things that are the deep desires of our hearts. And as we do that, we're going to explore the characters of the Christmas story and how we can learn from them in what godly character really looks like. And this morning, we're going to follow Zechariah and Elizabeth, and you can turn to Luke chapter 1, which is where we're going to read about their story. We're going to follow a couple that felt some of those same pressures that like Saber and I felt in wanting to have kids. They were a righteous couple, right? They were holy, they were good people, and Zechariah was a priest, and Elizabeth was his wife. And so they're good people, and yet they couldn't have kids. They couldn't have kids because they weren't young anymore. They were older, and so they couldn't have kids, and that time might have passed. They were praying for it, but they were far along in years. And so we're going to pick up that story in Luke chapter 1, starting in verse 11. It says this. Then an angel of the Lord appeared to Zechariah, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was startled and was gripped with fear. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zechariah. Your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to call him John. He will be a joy and a delight to you, and many will rejoice because of his birth, for he will be great in the sight of the Lord. He is never to take wine or other fermented drink, and he will be filled with the Holy Spirit even before he was born. He will bring back many of the people of Israel to the Lord their God, and he will go on before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord." This is amazing. This is a huge announcement. Gabriel is announcing you're going to have a son, and not only that, but he's going to be this savior of Israel, and he's going to bring about salvation for the world, and this is awesome. You're going to be great. You're going to call him John. It's going to be great. And Zechariah's response is, my wife's kind of old. Whew. My wife's kind of old. That is never the right response. Let's hear what he says for real here. He's going to get punished, don't worry. Zechariah asked the angel, "How can I be sure of this? I am old man and my wife is well along in years." All right? He kind of really just ruins the moment, right? This is supposed to be the answer of years, maybe decades of prayer. And his response and his attitude just aren't there. Right? They get there and it's supposed to be great. He's not doing the right thing. Like, he's a righteous guy, right? He's holy. His heart is good, and he's been going through this pressure and this long time of not having kids and still being faithful to God and serving God in the priesthood. And so he is a good guy with a good heart, but it seems to have taken his toll of the pressure that he's facing to have a kid and disappointment, and has brought in some cynicism and some bitterness. And we see in that, right? We see how our words have the effect of actions, and they can reveal our heart, and they can have a negative impact in people. They can bring joy, but they can also rob joy. And that's where he is right now. And that's why his actions aren't really showing what is really in his heart. There's something that's causing him to stumble, and it's that pressure to have kids. And with that, I see kind of a coin. We talked about this as we were talking about the ways God's guiding us in the scriptures, and how a coin has two sides, right? And in order for it to be legal tender, in order for it to be a valid coin, like both sides have to match up. And a quarter is very familiar to us, right? Very familiar to us. And even though there's different tales and stuff that people produce, we can pick up a quarter and we can feel it, we can look at it, we can know if a quarter is legal tender, if both sides match up. If something's wrong with one side, we know that it's probably not authentic, that something's wrong or missing. We know that both sides have to match up. And for Zechariah in this moment, both sides aren't matching up. His heart is there, but his actions are cynical and bitter and lacking in trust in God's plan. So we read further in verse 19, it says this. The angel said to him, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to tell you this good news. And now you will be silent and will not be able to speak until the day this happens, because you did not believe my words, which will come true at their appointed time. So he's made silence, right? And it's a good thing that Gabe got to him before his wife did. He's really on thin ice, right? He gets silence for 9 months. And no amens from the wives here. He gets silence for 9 months. And it's not because he had a question. I want that to be clear. God has questions asked of him all the time in Scripture. And he's okay with that. He answers the questions, he guides people, he gives them info as they need to have. It's not that. It's that he's questioning God's plan. He's questioning God's power at the heart of this. And that's why he's stumbling. That's why he gets that. I guess he's put on timeout. Right? Your kindergarten teachers, your elementary teachers, it's like, seems like you're having some emotions, some time here. You need to go ahead and sit in the corner and take some silent time to reflect on what you've done, Zechariah. Right? He's put in that corner to take some time of silence to really reflect on his heart and his actions coming from that. He stumbles in those actions. And pressure can lead us to stumble. Pressure can lead us to stumble. And that's what Zechariah is experiencing, that in his godly character. And so as you look at the back of your sheet, if you have one, if you don't, it's okay. There's a second question in the middle of that sheet. And it says, how might those pressures cause you to stumble in your godly character? Again, I'll give you a few seconds here to write. You can write it as I'm talking. That's totally okay. The pressures you listed on that first part that you expect to face this month, how might those cause you to stumble? How might they cause you to not act in godly character and not do the right things you know to do? If it's money, there might be the temptation to go way into debt to fulfill those expectations. If it's time, overcommitting, or maybe get so overwhelmed that you just back off of everything and you hole up and isolate. Or relationships, maybe it's the stumbling in your words, how you treat people, you're overextended, or maybe it's pretending. The expectations people have in relationships, the pressure, maybe you find this month is the time where you're supposed to pretend or act and not be real or honest. We write those things down. There are ways in which this pressure can cause us to stumble, and it's good for us to be aware of those pressures, and it's good for us to be aware of how they might cause us to act in ungodly ways. We're going to read in Luke 1:25, We're going to hear Elizabeth's response and her character. Talk about that coin. We're going to see how she matches up versus Zechariah. Verse 25, it says this. As she hears the news that she becomes pregnant, this is her response. The Lord has done this for me, she said. In these days he has shown his favor and taken away my disgrace among the people. See, Elizabeth knows how to take yes for an answer, right? She gets that yes from God. She's like, yeah, all right, good, I'm on board. She's right there. There's no hesitation from her in embracing God's plan. She is right there because in that quarter analogy, right, her heart and her, I lose my quarter, all right? No, there it is. Both sides match up for her. Both sides match up for her. Her heart is there, and the time it took for her to get pregnant didn't warp the other side. It didn't hinder her actions from reflecting that heart of God and how she responds and what she says. And it would have been hard for her as a woman, right? She would have been blamed for that, for not being pregnant. And that was their misunderstanding of science, but she would have carried an extra burden on there. It would have been easier for her to be more cynical, more bitter. And yet she's just right there with what God is calling, because she has this internal harmony of her spirit, of her heart, of her motives, and then how she acts on those. And from that, she's able to fully experience from the beginning more joy. She's right there filled with joy and on board with that. And she shows us that even under pressure, you can experience more joy through your godly character. Even under pressure, you can experience more joy through your godly character. And this is a month for us to remember that. This is a month for us to remember that, because in Elizabeth's example, she's living that out every day. And in the beginning, when she's not getting what she wants, because we can look at the story and say, well, of course she's happy, she's joyful, she got what she wanted. But she was already there. She wasn't happy that she didn't have children, but she still had joy in that. And as she gets children, right? So in that beginning, she has that pressure of not having kids and still is able to find that heart of joy in it. But then after she realizes she's going to give birth, she's going to have a kid, she has the pressure of having a child in older age and the pressure of raising a kid who's supposed to be savior to Israel, at least bring about the salvation for Israel, to pave the way for that. And so there's other pressure that she's going to have having John. And yet still, in either of those, she has that godly character. Her trust in God is complete. She's able to experience the fullness of joy. And from that, we learn that lesson of who to follow, whose example to look at. But we're going to give Zechariah another chance. We're going to go back to Luke chapter 1:57. We're going to see how he comes along. All right, he's been silenced for 9 months, and we catch up. And when it was time for Elizabeth to have her baby, she gave birth to a son. Her neighbors and relatives heard that the Lord had shown her great mercy, and they shared her joy. On the 8th day, they came to circumcise the child, and they were going to name him after his father, Zechariah. But his mother spoke up and said, "No, he is to be called John." They said to her, "There is no one among your relatives who has that name." And so a little pause here. What's going on there is like the family matters so much to them. It matters a lot to us, but it matters so much to them and their heritage and their history, and they can trace their genealogy back, and you're the son of the tribe, right? And so to name a kid outside of your family names would have been weird, and maybe even a dishonor to the people in your family. And John is not a family name for them, for either of them. And so there's that pressure already. She has a child and it's there, and the idea of even in that moment that's supposed to be pure joy, there's this family pressure heaped on her to conform and to do what they expect her to do, what they expect them to do. And they made a sign to Zechariah, the father, to find out what he would like to name the child. He asked for a writing tablet, and to everyone's astonishment, he wrote, "His name is John." Immediately his mouth was opened and his tongue set free, and he began to speak, praising God. right? He gets that moment, right? It's finally that moment where he's able to step into what God is calling the family to do, and he's on board with it. He's finally on board with it. Because as he names this child John, he's not just choosing a name, he's choosing to fully embrace what God is doing by acknowledging that, to not succumb to the pressure. Because he would have felt that too, to name a kid a certain way. He doesn't succumb to that pressure. He steps up and follows through with what God is calling him, to name his son John, to affirm God's plan, to dedicate John to what God is going to do. And from that, he breaks out in a song, right? He breaks out like a musical is happening, just like this. Like it's going to be song and it's going to be dancing. He does this. And I'm not going to break out in song, okay? My job here is to bring you to a place of joy, so I'm not going to sing. But he breaks out in this like musical number, and you should read it. It starts in 67. I'm not going to. I don't have time. But he has that fullness of joy made complete in him because he's embracing God's plan. He's fully trusting God. We can't escape the pressures in life. Even in this, they have their child, that's a big pressure relieved for them. Even in that, there's still that another pressure point. Well, now you have a kid, that's great. Now you name him the way we want you to name him, right? Even in that, they're not able to escape pressures. But they learn, especially Zechariah learns, how to lessen those pressures, how to endure those pressures while maintaining godly character. And so the last question I have for you is on the back of the sheet, the third one, the last one. How might living godly character help you lessen or endure the pressures that you listed? How might living godly character help you lessen or endure those pressures that you're going to face this month? So you're writing or thinking, there's a few like examples that come to mind, and maybe the way we lessen it is we don't have to buy as much this month. Like the pressure to provide all the gifts we want to for our kids or family, maybe we don't have to quite go that far. Maybe you don't have to do as much. You look at your calendar, your schedule, and there's so many things that stack up, and maybe it's an event too far. Where if you're doing all those things and you're just tired and you're going to be cranky and you're going to snap at people because you're just going from place to place to place, it's a quantity over quality approach, and you're just not going to be able to represent godly character by keeping that pace or spending that amount of money. And you need to say no. Or you need to say less. And that could be a good thing, right? That can bring you more joy because we seek after the happiness part of it and we miss out on the greater joys. And I'll give you an example. My son and I were walking out of a store, and he loves to buy things, right? He loves those things. I've talked about that before. And he sees this motorcycle, and it's like $350 or whatever, and he wants to buy it, and he says, hey, can we buy it? And I'm the dad, so I say no, right? I don't know. God help us if Saber was with him. Sorry, she's good. But I say no, just automatically. That's my instinct, just no. And I said, we don't have the money for that. And we're walking out, and we kind of get to the truck, and I realize, well, that's not true, is it? I have a savings account. I have the $350. I could actually make it. I could buy it. And so I told him, actually, Alex, I do have the money to buy that motorcycle. I'm not going to. And the reason why is because we haven't budgeted for that there's other things that money's set aside for that we should take time for to save up for that if we really want it. But for now, I don't have the money set aside to be able to do that. It wouldn't be responsible. It wouldn't be a good use of resources to do it. If you want to save up your money, you can do that. If you save up some money, maybe I'll match and make up some of the difference, and we can go from there. And then an example, like being able to teach in that moment something that's godly character. There are times where I have just bought things for him. But in that moment, I was able to pass on something deeper than just getting that moment of happiness of having something that's eventually going to just sit in the garage and gather dust. He's able to learn about stewardship. He's able to learn about responsibility, about discipline. And so this month, there are many ways in which God might be bringing you a win-win, where you can lessen the pressures and be able to exhibit godly qualities, godly character in those. My parents are here this morning, and I'm actually going to tell a good story about them. You're welcome. I know. Dad's surprised. When we were kids, we used to have our schedule, right? And every parent faces that. What are you going to do with your Christmas morning and open the presents and the chaos of it? And I know that they probably felt that same pressure to fill the day with a lot of things and to have a certain number of traditions, but they set time aside. There were many, many, many years in which we would wake up, we would do the stockings in one present, and then we would go out and we would go into town. We'd get dressed in proper clothes, not just the pajamas, and we would go in and we would serve meals to people who didn't have, homeless people who didn't have a place to eat at the Elks Club in Newport. We'd take that time set aside. We'd reallocate the time from the busyness we'd normally do to doing something that had more value. And there's a lot of the presents I can't remember getting as a kid, but I do remember that time of being able to set that aside and reprioritize and really live out that godly character. And so for us this month, there's a lot of opportunity that you have to live that out, to lessen that pressure, or to find ways to maybe, endure some of that pressure. So when we live godly character, we experience the heart of Christmas and discover more. I'm going to call up the worship team here as they prepare to continue to lead us in worship. But look at that sheet. Maybe you wrote some things. Maybe you need to grab one on the way out as you go through home this week. Look at that backside. This is the great time. This is the calm before the storm. We just got done with Thanksgiving. Things are happening. Take some time to get ahead of it. Take some time to get ahead of what you know is going to be a stumbling block for you, the things that you know are going to trip you up. They're going to take that godly character away from you. And think about what God's leading you in that, how you can fully bring godly character into you. I'm going to call up the prayer team too. Prayer team, come forward. And coming forward, you can come up here and pray alongside them about anything in the message, things you're struggling with, the pressures you're facing, the things in your life. It might be finances, it might be a relationship, it might be time, it might be something I didn't think of. As you're facing that, you can come and just share in prayer. They're a great bunch. They're an impetuous bunch. They're going to pray for you regardless of whether you come up. They're going to pray for you regardless of whether you come up, but it's great if you come up and pray with them. And it doesn't have to be about the message. It can be about something on your heart, health issues. It can be anything that God is calling you to do. Come and join them in prayer. But would you stand? I'm going to go ahead and pray for us this morning. Lord, this season we encounter so much good stuff. There's so many good things that we want to do, so many good things that are available to us, Lord. And they can be thoroughly enjoyable. But Lord, I pray that in all the stuff we do and all the things that we put in our schedule and the fun stuff we buy and the food and just all that, I pray that we wouldn't lose sight. We wouldn't lose sight of godly character, living that out. That it needs to match up. We need to do the right things for the right reasons. We need to, because as we embrace that heart of Christmas, we'll experience more joy, the fullness of joy, not just moments of happiness. And Lord, I pray that there are so many opportunities that we might encounter to stumble in living that out. I pray that we would be wise enough to see those coming, and maybe do one or two things, maybe a lot of things different this time. So we can love others well, we can experience that full joy of this season. I pray all that in your holy name. Amen.